Hello, I'm Jennifer Goodman. I'm here today with Damon Behrens from Kipp Flores Architects. Thanks so much for coming in, Damon.
Thank you, Jennifer. Pleasure to be here. Lots of other items going on, but happy to be here.
All right. Well, let's talk about a few things going on in Austin today. Let's jump into what are some of the newest trends you're seeing right now in innovation.
What we're finding a lot right now with home design is trying to keep everything really simple. Nice honesty in materials, kind of streamlining the design. And then there's also a trend now that we're seeing a lot with multi-generational homes. Okay. People trying that either have an elderly parent or kids that are moving back home because of affordability issues. Mm-hmm.
Right, and I guess in both those senses that defining space is really going to be important.
It is. And it's becoming defining space with the open concept floor plans. Mm-hmm. And how do you kind of blend those two items together?
Okay, let's talk about that. How do you, from a layout perspective, what are you seeing right now?
Granted, there's still a little bit of flooring change that you see, but a lot of people are going to kind of monolithic flooring. And so you're changing kind of the room definitions with ceiling heights and ceiling treatments, mm-hmm. and also sometimes screening.
Okay. So screening from the sense that you're flowing inside to out and outside to in?
There's screening that way, but then also in between rooms, where you're slightly dividing the rooms, but you're not really visually breaking kind of the sight lines.
Right, so how do you do that from a design perspective?
That can be kind of a challenge, and it's like with the home that we're going to be looking at for Mike Thurman, kind of that kitchen island peninsula there helps kind of break right. the flow of what is your living room and what is kind of your kitchen and dining. That room is very open, and just that peninsula itself kind of visually breaks the room into two different pieces, but it doesn't obstruct the view from the front to the back of the house.
Right, and as a result, all the rooms feel bigger.
Yes.
That's fair. Yes. Okay, great. What are you seeing these days in terms of trends in kitchen design?
Lots of people with modern architecture, lots of people are going to just using lots of base cabinets, which now are typically drawers instead of open cabinets. Mm-hmm. And upper cabinets are being reduced, and even in some cases going to a lot of open shelving for your storage.
I've noticed that, and I don't know how people do that. I mean, we live in Texas and there's dust. Right. I can't imagine having the ability to keep all that clean. It looks pretty, but from an actual lifestyle perspective, do you have any thoughts on that?
It's part of that's going back to reducing kind of the number of items that you use and have out. Mm-hmm. And so that if those are constantly used items, it's going back to where people always used to hand wash their dishes. If you're using 3 or 4 items, using them, washing them, putting them back up, and mm-hmm. not using the dishwasher kind of on a sustainability type deal, mm-hmm. is if you're only using 2 or 3 cups, plates, etc., hand washing them and then putting them back up all the time, they're going to stay relatively clean.
Can you tell me a little bit about the trends that you're seeing in materials today?
It's kind of funny. I just got back from the International Builder Show in Las Vegas. And one of the things that they're talking about there is looking back over the last 15, 20 years that I've been active in the kind of design business, granite countertops now is kind of the standard. Mm-hmm. If you want something that's a step above, now you're having to go to the quartz or the silestone or some other even higher end product. So it's really driving kind of what your base spec items are for even your starter homes up. Right.
And the appliances, I mean, I saw some really cool stuff online about some of the things they're bringing out now. Like there's an ice maker that ensures that you have clear ice cubes.
Yeah,
it's a game changer.
That's rather interesting.
So yeah, I understand there's some really neat innovation coming out of that show.
Right, and there's one of the other things that I was really interested in is Bosch and a few other of the appliance manufacturers are coming out with 24-inch appliance packages.
Oh,
which
compact.
is really nice for, we do quite a bit of work with ADUs and secondary dwellings here in Austin. And these new compact appliance packages will really help with those situations.
So a higher end appliance for smaller scale living, if you will.
Yeah, correct.
Great. Do you think that you have a signature style, Damon? And if you do, what is it?
Personally, I don't know that I do. With the broad clientele that we work with, it really varies. But one thing that we're seeing now, our main business is working with builders and providing them product to sell to their end user clients. And one of the trends we're seeing is elevation styles are becoming very prevalent. So if somebody says they're looking for a Tudor home, you give them a Tudor style home, or a Tuscan home. You're looking for really pulling a lot from the strict design guidelines for those styles. There's not much blending or anything else that goes on anymore. And even with the modern style homes, people want something that they can readily identify with an architectural style.
Sure. So why don't we talk about that? How are you defining modern in your world of design?
Kind of my take on it is, a lot of times I go back to, and even with like Michael Thurman's home, it's kind of a throwback or a variation off of kind of a mid-century modern.
Okay.
Lots of single pitch roofs, but there is still lots of siding. So I'm just trying to have very clean lines. And open spaces.
That's the big one, the open spaces.
Correct.
Yeah. And that actually takes me to almost like what's hot and what's not these days.
One, kind of the open floor plans, a lot of compartmentalized houses that we used to see back in the 70s, 80s, or even historically, where you have each room is kind of its own compartment. That is definitely going away. Formal dining rooms and formal livings.
Gone.
They are pretty much gone. But things that we're starting to add in are, in smaller homes, a small kind of dedicated office area. It might only be 65, 70, 80 square feet, but just since the floor plan is so open, someplace that you can go sit, pay bills, browse the computer, kind of other daily activities that you can readily close off, because that'll typically be a messy part of your life. And if you have guests or something come over, you can easily close it off and nobody knows it's there.
Right.
Also trying to develop a kind of a family entrance to the home. Everybody typically, with an attached garage, always enters the house through the garage. And having an area there that they come into the home, they can, a drop zone area or storage somewhere there, and not necessarily, and trying to get away from going through a utility room, which once again is always one of the cluttered or more messy rooms of your house.
Where do you see the future of new builds, Damon?
That is one of the questions that's always out there. Everybody looks at, okay, with affordability and everything, that is always a hot topic, is trying to compress the size of homes for affordability, lot cost, those items. But one of the trends that we've actually seen in our office is first-time home buyers, move downs, and everything else that we deal with from our clients on a kind of regional basis. Those square footages keep going up. So there's a definite kind of quandary, if you want, where the market of what people are looking for, because the idea that they have is we need this much square footage, this many rooms, is driving home cost and everything up. But with the affordability issue and the higher cost of labor, materials, and everything else, actually, to get an affordable home now, you really have to start looking at smaller square footage. But that's going to take a shift in people realizing what they can and cannot live without.
Yeah, and I think people are more aware now of that, because we've had, when you consider the level of consumption that we're so used to, I think more and more people are starting to recognize exactly what you said, which is, what can we live without? What do we really need to be happy?
Right.
So these more modern homes that aren't the big McMansions are still giving you the lifestyle you want. They may just not give you total square footage because you've decided you don't need it. And it's funny because I have a girlfriend who's got this beautiful home. She's been in it about a year. And she said to me on the weekend, she's like, I'll tell you something, living in this house is like work. I don't enjoy it as much as I thought I would, because of the amount of space now that I'm constantly kind of keeping clean, and the kids' toys and everything. All it did was scatter, but it didn't provide them with what they thought would be a better lifestyle.
Right.
What's the one thing you'd say right now that homeowners can do to make their homes more eco-friendly from a design perspective?
From a design perspective, part of it is to look at the siding and orientation of the house and make sure that you're not putting large expanses of glass and everything else facing west. Granted, in our kind of regional climate that we've got, that's one of the biggest items that kind of contributes to heat gain. But from a regional architecture standpoint, using larger overhangs, making sure you are shading the walls, and then kind of orientation on the site, and trying to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for energy consumption.
For sure. And if I'm in my house right now, what would you recommend?
If you're currently in a home, looking at ways, if you do have a siting issue where your house does face west, see if there's some way that you can add some type of screening, or be it vegetation or physical window screens or something to help cut down on that heat gain.
Do you have a business mantra?
Our business is based off of, we call ourselves the builder's architect. Okay. And what we try to do is provide unique homes for our builders that are easy to construct, they're profitable, and then also provide their end user, which is the final client, a very kind of livable home.
And when you think about success in the field of design, who comes to mind?
There seems to be lots of good design going on out there. Some of the people that kind of regionally that I like what they're doing, Lake Flauto, with all of their kind of blend of regional architecture and kind of ranch or farm kind of structures that they use. I think Michael Shue does a lot of good work locally, and those are just kind of two that I can think of that I know I've seen some of their work. I've been rather impressed with.
I'm Jennifer Goodman with GoodLife Realty, and I've been here today with Damon Behrens of Kipp Flores Architects. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit with us on trends and innovations and what's going on with your brand.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jennifer.
Pleasure. That's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.